the line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners. I got another breakout or bust episode for you today, talking about, from my Detroit Lions, DeAndre Swift. Is he going to take that step up, become that dynamic running back, the skills that he showcased while he was at Georgia? Or will Jamal Williams and the Lions, because frankly they mess everything up, hold him back from steady fantasy relevance? We're going to talk about that and dive deep into it right now here on the Fantasy Headliners. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the video as well. And speaking of busts, listen, you've had a beautiful night out with your significant other or maybe a friend that you just met. You're headed back to your place. You don't want to be labeled as a bust. Like a lot of athletes say, look good, play good. Well, listen, you're definitely going to be looking good if you head over to manscaped.com, use code word headliners, all capital letters, and get 20% off all of their great products and free shipping. Again, Manscaped is who you want, keeping you looking fresh and real this off season as we head into the regular season. So make sure you head over to manscaped.com, use code word headliners, all capital letters, 20% off and free shipping. Now, we're going to dive into it, all right? Let's take a look at DeAndre Swift and what potentially lies ahead with some deep diving statistics. But first, the top layer numbers. What did we get from DeAndre Swift in 2020? I mean, we got hope, right? When you look at DeAndre Swift and his numbers last year, they weren't necessarily that bad. In 13 games, he ran for 521 yards on 114 attempts. He helped out in the passing game as well. 46 receptions, 357 receiving yards, and 10 total touchdowns. Even though the numbers on the ground are really nothing to write home about, he was really, really good in the passing game last year. Just looking at volume statistics, considering he only played in 13 games. Swift last season, his 56 targets were 12th in the league, his 46 receptions were 13th, and his 357 receiving yards were 11th. We're going to do a little bit of a compliment sandwich here, all right? Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you've gone through any classes in terms of managing or things of that nature, then you've heard this before, where with feedback, right? You hit somebody with a compliment, then constructive criticism, and then another compliment. Well, first thing about DeAndre Swift, compliment-wise, he was great in the passing game last year. They've lost Adrian Peterson, who also saw some targets in the passing game. They've lost Kenny Golladay. They've lost Marvin Jones. They've lost Danny Amendola. They have over 200 vacated targets from the 2020 season that can now go to whoever they want, right? And the main people right now feel like TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift. So the volume he saw last year could definitely see one huge step forward. And we're going to talk about that more here in just a moment. But now we got to talk about some constructive criticism, because on a per touch basis, DeAndre Swift last season was, for the lack of a better word, not good. He wasn't. He averaged 4.57 yards per attempt. Not bad, right? But then when you get into some of these other numbers, he just wasn't that dynamic of a runner last season, all right? Maybe was being brought down a little too quickly. Now, was it because of the offensive line? Was it because they were missing some key weapons? Was it because people were injured? Whatever it may be, when you take a look at it, his 2.41 yards after contact per attempt, his 17 avoided tackles, and his 0.15 avoided tackles per attempt were all outside the top 20 running backs of those statistics last season. So Swift was not very good on a per-touch basis when you look at some of these dynamic stats. Now, for those of you who have purchased our draft guide, if you haven't yet, you can go to thefantasyheadliners.com and get it for $20 right now. But for those of you that have purchased the draft guide, you've had a chance to possibly, hopefully, look through my dynamic running back rating. Now, The DRBR, absolutely love it. Why do I love the DRBR? Because it really shows us how good a running back is and what their upside is on a weekly or on a per touch basis. So when we go out there on a per touch basis every single week, what do we got? DeAndre Swift's 55 weighted score last year was not very good. And the reason it was propped up to where it was is because on a per game basis, he did really well with rushing touchdowns and receptions. But his yards after contact, his tackle avoided per attempt, his receiving yards after the catch, all of those fell into the 60s, okay? His yards for receiving fell into the 59 range. His carries and his yards under 50. So when you look at those scores in the DRBR, you see that on a per touch basis, DeAndre Swift just was not that good last season. Now, again, let's go back to trying to look at glass half full here with DeAndre Swift, because they're going to have a very much improved offensive line. I mean, adding Penny Sewell in the draft, it was absolutely huge. They have one of the better centers in Frank Ragnow in all of football. And hopefully Taylor Decker and other guys are able to take a step forward and really up their game this season. Now, you also know that we've got some new weapons, okay? And when you've got new weapons and they're learning the playbook and everything like that, and yes, DeAndre Swift is also going to be learning the playbook, but when you see here in just a second, this playbook very well could be basically catered for DeAndre Swift. Now, let's take a look at a couple of other stats again, trying to prop DeAndre Swift up as much as possible, because these stats that you're seeing right here, like I said, are not very good. But we know DeAndre Swift is a good running back. His .49 points per snap brought him in at 6th among running backs last season, and his 1.21 points per touch brought him in at 9th. Now, those are boosted just a little bit because he was able to secure 10 total touchdowns last season. So those numbers without those touchdowns would obviously be a lot lower. So some of his fantasy relevance last season was boosted by the fact that he hit double-digit total touchdowns. We're probably going to see that again in 2021, ladies and gentlemen. And I will say, earlier in the offseason, I wasn't feeling Swift. I was worried about the addition of Jamal Williams. When they drafted Sewell, that helped me feel a lot better right away. But we need to see him get better in some of these areas. And hopefully Sewell will be the one to push him to that level. But let's talk about the Anthony Lynn effect. And purposely, we're going to bring in Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon here. Anthony Lynn has been the head coach in San Diego / LA since 2017. As you can see by the numbers there, ladies and gentlemen, targets, receptions, and yards in the passing game, Anthony Lynn has always utilized his running backs to the best of their ability, fed them early, and fed them often. 129 targets in 2017, 91 receptions, 781 yards, 457 total touches. Now, this is for every running back that was on the roster. 2018, Austin Eckler in his second year there, 138 targets, 104 receptions, 1,029 yards, 435 total touches to the running backs. In 2019, Melvin Gordon's final year there, 174 targets, 143 receptions, 1,311 receiving yards, 466 total touches. And then last season, even after Austin Eckler was dealing with injuries, Melvin Gordon departs and heads to Denver. 139 targets in the passing game, 116 receptions, 823 yards, but 490 total touches to running backs last season. Now, last season, like I mentioned, they did deal with some injuries in the backfield. They had guys on and off the field. Eckler was the big name there that dealt with the injuries. Last season, Austin Eckler led the way with a per-game basis of running back 13 in half PPR leagues. Now, his overall score for the year, or his overall fantasy points for the year, were not great, right? Because he missed quite a bit of time. But, again, on a per-game basis, RB13 last season. But if you look from 2017 to 2019, they averaged their top running back an RB6 finish in half PPR leagues. Anthony Lynn, for as bad as he was as a head coach, okay, awful in certain situations, not the best in terms of being able to adjust a game plan. Now all he has to do is focus on just the offense. And I think that's going to help. I think that's going to help him because you could see at times as a head coach, he would look overwhelmed. Focusing just on the offense, the play calling, all of it, hopefully Anthony Lynn will be able to really utilize his talents that got him a head coaching position in the first place. And at one point this offseason, you heard from Anthony Lynn. He said, listen, I wasn't going to come back and coach this year. Then Dan calls me up, Dan Campbell, and I decided to come to Detroit. I have to imagine that DeAndre Swift is one of the reasons that Anthony Lynn decided not to take a year off and to coach this season. He utilizes his running backs. And from we've seen with Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon together, he can utilize two running backs. Now, DeAndre Swift, he's going to make his presence known in the passing game this year. They did not just sign Jamal Williams to sign him, okay? They signed him to a pretty decent deal. They could have drafted somebody, but instead they went out and got a proven vet. They did that because that's what they wanted, okay? They wanted that type of a guy in the locker room and on the field next to DeAndre Swift. That was by design. So Jamal Williams is going to get a decent amount of touches this year. You could really anticipate Jamal Williams getting at least 150 touches on the ground this season, which is going to limit DeAndre Swift on the ground. But it is the passing game numbers that show us that there is an opportunity for DeAndre Swift to receive about 80 targets this season, if not a little bit more. Austin Eckler 2 years ago, the second most targeted player on the Chargers. If you add up all the targets given to Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler in 2018, they're probably the most targeted tandem. If you add them together, the most targeted position on the team. He utilizes both guys. So, will Jamal Williams really eat into some of the things that DeAndre Swift is going to do on the ground? Yes. If you're saying otherwise, you're kidding yourself, okay? But that doesn't mean that DeAndre Swift still can't be fantasy relevant, and it still doesn't mean that we can't use him. Think of Austin Eckler light, okay? Think of Austin Eckler, but in the days when Melvin Gordon was there, okay? Think of that with DeAndre Swift. That right there is going to be really at worst case scenario in half PPR and PPR leagues around a middle of the pack RB2. Mid RB2 with some low end RB1 upside, especially on the weeks that Detroit is trailing and they're dumping it off to DeAndre Swift quite a bit. Am I expecting a breakout? Kind of. I'm not saying that DeAndre Swift is going to go out there and be an RB1. Right now, I've got him, as I said, a mid RB2. I've got him right in that 13 to 15 range. I think that's where we're going to end up seeing him land. But as long as he's your RB2 on your team, and you've already set in stone your workhorse, the guy that you know that's going to get touches, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, guys of that nature. Maybe you drafted Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you drafted Dalvin Cook. You set in stone a guy that's already going to be your RB1. DeAndre Swift as your RB2 in a PPR or half PPR league. At that point, you're setting yourself up for a lot of success, Headliner Nation. Listen, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you hit that like button. And in the comments down below, let me know where you think DeAndre Swift is going to land this season. Again, I like him, but I'm definitely not overhyping him because I do believe that Jamal Williams is going to cause some headaches throughout the season, knowing that that ceiling from DeAndre Swift is probably capped a little bit. And if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, well, you got to hit that subscribe button and stick around for all the great content, not only the rest of the offseason, but as we get into the regular season. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Y'all stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.